Buddy, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to talk to you about a story that I just saw today from Supreme Court Justice. It involves Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Justice Scalia made some interesting comments about affirmative action, comments that some people would consider to be racist, which I do as well. And basically, he seems to have an issue with the idea of people of color being given any kind of advantage due to affirmative action. He actually stated in a recent Supreme Court case that involved the University of Texas, he stated that, or he made this comment. He said, "There are those who contend that it does not benefit African Americans to get them into the University of Texas, where they do not do well, as opposed to having them go to a less advanced school, a less or slower track school where they would do well." Let's see, he said, according to the transcript, one of the briefs pointed out that most of the black scientists in this country don't come from schools like the University of Texas. They come from lesser schools where they do not feel that they're being pushed ahead in classes that are too fast for them. He said, "I'm just not impressed by the fact that the University of Texas may have fewer. Maybe it ought to have fewer." I guess he's referring to black people. And maybe some, when you take more, the number of blacks, really competent blacks, admitted to lesser schools turns out to be less. He says, "I don't think the solution to the problems with student body diversity can be to set up a system in which not only are minorities going to separate schools, they're going to inferior schools." Sorry, this is what Garre said. Garre, the attorney, Gregory Garre. Sorry, so Garre said this. So Scalia didn't say that last part. Now, according to the theory, the mismatch theory, from Stuart Taylor and Richard Sander, basically they say that the idea is, and this is a quote from CNN, the idea is that if a student is admitted to a school they are not academically prepared for, then they will not perform up to their own potential. This is a theory contested, of course, but I don't want people to get the idea that it means that all black students are not as smart as white students, or even that they are not as well prepared across the board. Um, so this is interesting. Okay, um, all right. Where do we start with this? Um, what I see in this comment, and I'm speaking really here as a person who went to school for a very long time, as well as a person who taught at major universities for 20 years. Um, what you're really seeing is kind of the blindness of racial bias, the way it kind of feeds this sort of ignorance about people of color, the way it sort of perceives whiteness as a type of supremacy, in which whites are allowed to define, what it means for a school to be superior, what it means to be successful in America, what it means to get ahead, etc. And because we're operating in this cage, what's so interesting to me is that it translates into this idea that whiteliness is godliness, that a black person getting accepted by white people, being acknowledged by white people, being validated by white people, being accepted by white people, being promoted by white people means that you are inherently a more successful, better human being. Many of these institutions, if you go look at, for example, at some of the rankings of top universities, etc., they're going to typically have a huge number of white schools at the very top. It will probably be another 400, 500 years before any school with a majority black population, if it ever happens, is ranked among, say, the top 10, top 20. That's because due to this myth, this lie, this destructive force called integration, we have concluded that it's that their standard of excellence should match our standard of excellence. And I'm talking about in terms of what institutions you want to be affiliated with, what it means to be successful, why Harvard University is considered to be better than Spelman College. I had to break myself out of that line of thinking. I really actually see Spelman as being superior to a Harvard or Yale or any other place when it comes to educating black children. Morehouse, to some extent, Howard University. If you talk about the very best that Howard has to offer, we've seen some problems at Howard too. But if you look at the very best that leading universities have to offer, leading black universities have to offer, they can go pound for pound with the students at the top universities. And even if the institutions themselves don't quite match up, the quality of the student body matches up, the quality of the learning can match up. And really, if you want to go even deeper, I've seen black parents who homeschool their kids who get a type of educational quality that exceeds what you're going to get at a lot of these, public schools, private schools, universities, etc. And so what does this say? This says a few things. This Scalia comment. First and foremost, it says that it reminds me of that Ice Cube song. I don't know if you remember. There was a song he did a long time ago where or actually it was an NWA song, and at the end they said something like, "Here's what they think about you." Well, this Scalia comment really does reflect what they think about you. They sort of see affirmative action as another type of welfare. That, oh, here we go, giving these people something because their culture isn't strong enough for them to actually earn it on their own. It shows the depth of the mental illness of white supremacy. The fact that many whites, despite the fact that they've received affirmative action their entire lives, their ancestors gave them affirmative action by stealing, raping, pillaging, castrating, destroying every black person who ever tried to accomplish something, by taking wealth away from black people and passing it on to their kids, by destroying black institutions systematically and going into towns where black people were actually getting ahead and just, you know, acting like mass murderers, and for the sake of their own children. This has led to just the ultimate affirmative action program for white males like Scalia. If you look at Scalia's own background, what do you see? You see a guy who graduated from Harvard Law School. If he had been black, he probably would not have gotten a chance to go to Harvard. He probably wouldn't have graduated. He probably wouldn't be on the Supreme Court. The only exception might be a guy like a Clarence Thomas, who pretty much has committed himself to being a white guy in black skin. He pretty much goes in. From what I understand, I think it's Scalia that he follows on every single vote. He really is a really educated. If you want to call somebody an educated coon, you would probably talk about Clarence Thomas, and that's kind of the price of admission to achieve the success of being on the Supreme Court. And that's also reflective of the danger of getting into the mindset that whiteliness is godliness, that being accepted by whites makes you a more successful, better person. Because what happens is that in order to be accepted by whites and to get them to really like you, you must degrade everything that makes you black, special, unique, and powerful. Clarence Thomas, for example, if he had been raised to be a Malcolm X kind of figure, he would have been much more of a relevant human being. He would have been a much more impactful and powerful and significant human being. He would have been a much more productive human being for the black community. But he wouldn't have been on the Supreme Court. He wouldn't have been next to those white folks in black robes, all of whom went to some Ivy League school. If I'm not mistaken, all of them at some point in their careers attended Harvard or Yale. That's because Harvard and Yale, they have their own little affirmative action program. They take care of their own people. They put them in positions of power. Go back and count how many presidents of the United States have been from Harvard or Yale. Look at how many Supreme Court justices are from Harvard and Yale. This is not because Harvard and Yale has a monopoly on smart people. It's because they've got an affirmative action program that they've been running for the last 250, 300, 400 years. Do you understand that? So, when you hear a Supreme Court justice make this kind of remark, I think it does reflect the depth to which we as black people are really in danger when we are overly committed to a system that's designed and run by whites. It doesn't mean all white people wake up and try to be bad, but the fact is that they are also psychologically trapped by the disease of white supremacy. That they can't even see it because the world doesn't make them see it. The only thing that might make them see it is if you have some Black Lives Matter activists roll up in the Supreme Court and scream and holler and disrupt everything. Then maybe they'll think about it for a second. Those are the kinds of things that cause people like Scalia to stop for a second and say, "I wonder what they're all upset about. Maybe I should question something about how I got to where I am." But they're not going to be able to see that. It's just kind of like how one famous guy, I can't remember who it was, said something like, "Some people are born on third base and really think they hit a triple." Being white in America is the same as being born on third base. It doesn't mean that every white person gets a chance to be on the Supreme Court. We know a lot of white people struggle and suffer, etc. But being white is certainly, it's in like what we call it in mathematics. It's a necessary though not sufficient condition to get certain opportunities and certain freedoms in this country. Being white significantly and being white and Jewish significantly increases your chances of getting on the Supreme Court. If you go look at the history of the Supreme Court, they have a massive affirmative action program when it comes to whites and also for Jews. Jews are not a huge percentage of this population, but they represent an extraordinary number of Supreme Court justices. And the thing about it is that a Supreme Court justice position is something that where that there are probably thousands of people. There are clearly thousands of people across the country, brilliant lawyers and judges who are capable of serving on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court position does not go to the person who's the smartest. Yeah, you got to be smart, but there's a whole lot of smart people knocking on that door. It's all political. And a lot of opportunity in America is driven by politics. Well, who controls the politics? White people. So effectively, that's the affirmative action program that white people have benefited from since the very beginning. But here's the thing I want to say to black people is that part of the reason that you're trapped by all of this, that this system frustrates you, is because this system was not designed by you, nor was it designed to empower you. The only way that it empowers you is if you disempower yourself. The only way you get a chance to put on that white robe or the black robe on the Supreme Court, the only chance you, only way you get an opportunity to sit next to that powerful white man is if you disassociate yourself from a truly empowered black man. You understand? So the only way that you will get certain opportunities in this country, whether it's corporate America, whether it's universities, whether it's in the legal field or any other profession, in many cases, is if you play a certain kind of political game. And much of that political game typically involves literally stripping yourself of everything that makes you unique, everything that makes you special. So the question is, how do you hold on to that? And I understand this game very well because I remember when I was going through my PhD program, and I was kind of the favored Negro. I was that black student who did really well on my exams and had this extraordinary ability and things, these complicated fields like at the asset pricing theory, some stuff that was really hard, really hard. But I was good at it. So what happened was I was being accepted into certain circles. I had white males that really embraced me. Some of them almost looked at me like almost like a son or something like that, an academic version of that. And I appreciated that. I mean, there was kindness being shown toward me, which leads me to always argue with people when they try to say every white person gets up and wants to be the devil. I don't think that every white person I know thinks that way. I think most of them really think that they're doing the right thing. That's what makes it so dangerous. That's what makes the wrong thing that much more effective, is that they've been convinced that doing the wrong thing is actually doing the right thing, so they try to do more of it because it makes them feel like they're better people. That's what inherently happens. And so what happened though was that I began to get this feeling that I was not playing a game that involved my intellect per se or my ability per se. Those were factors absolutely, but it became a political game where it was, look, as long as as long as you forget about those people, as long as you get up out the hood, get away from the black community, and behave like us, we're going to take good care of you. We're going to hook you up. We're going to give you big money. You might teach at a Harvard University. You're going to get access to certain circles you never get access to. The only thing we ask you to do is to not be a radical black man. And it was tempting as a young person when you don't know who you are. It's easy to fall for that. And to be honest with you, I was almost accidentally derailed from that. I experienced some racism I didn't understand, and instead of folding to it, I fought back, and I said, no, this ain't right, and it made me question everything. It's almost like one of those things where something happens, and imagine like you have a best friend and he does something that just seems crazy to you, and then it makes you replay, or let's say he betrays you, and you replay every single thing that person has done, and you rewrite the story. Basically, you see a whole different narrative based on the facts that are in front of you. That's what I started. That's what kind of led me to question everything I'd seen in terms of white America. And what I decided was, and this is my final point, I'm gonna let you guys go after this, is that I decided, there's going to be a price. I figured out there's going to be a huge price for me to be a strong and empowered and committed black man. The price is going to be huge. There's going to be a huge temptation that I'm going to have to walk past. The temptation is that if you will shut down everything that makes you special as a black man, you will be accepted by whites. They're going to let you in. And I had to walk away from that. And I had to just say that to myself. I said, well, I want power. I want to be successful. Maybe I can get success and power from my people. I want to run an organization one day. Maybe I can build one of my own. I want to. I want to be in a place where I can be comfortable and do well in life, or whatever that is. And I said, well, maybe I can do that by working for my people as opposed to signing on to this bullshit. And so what I encourage you to do is don't sign on to the bullshit. When you look at this guy Scalia, everything he's saying is pretty much a joke. If you want, he wants to talk about the affirmative action program that you might have been able to take advantage of in school, he needs to look at the affirmative action program that he's taken advantage of. Go look at the Supreme Court justices and count how many of them went to Harvard or Yale. Ginsburg, if I'm not mistaken, didn't graduate from Harvard, but she attended Harvard and transferred to Columbia. Look at where they went to undergraduate. Look at where they went to law school. Every single one of the members of the Supreme Court is a beneficiary of an affirmative action program that tends to go to white people or to rich people. If you're at Harvard and Yale and you're graduating people like George Bush, as dumb as he is, you can't sit here and pretend like your university only represents the essence of elite academic achievement, because that's just not true. You can't pretend like your institution represents the essence of equity and fairness, because that's just not true. When you look at the Harvard Law School and you see that they went 200 and something years and only gave tenure to one African American woman, and then only gave tenure to the second one when Roland Martin and I were raising hell about Obama's appointment a few years ago, then you can't pretend like your house is clean. You need to clean your own house before you go criticizing everybody else. And the thing is that because black people are on the shorter end or the weaker end of the political spectrum, people are very quick to point out what's wrong with us, where we might not fit or where we might not be good enough. And so that's why you hear this rhetoric where he will gladly question whether or not that black kid is qualified to graduate from a school like University of Texas, which really isn't. I mean, it's a good school, but it's not I mean, it's not that hard to get through a class at the University of Texas. I'll say that. It's not easy, but it's not that hard. So rather than questioning himself and how he got to where he is and how people like him get ahead and get opportunities from the affirmative action program that their ancestors built by raping and destroying and looting and massacring black people, rather than questioning that, he'd rather question you and say, well, yeah, we're not going to talk about all the horrible things my ancestors did in order to create this very biased landscape. We're going to talk about what's wrong with you and why it's not fair that people are trying to correct the problem. You understand? Because all affirmative action is it's a tiny drop in the bucket of what it's going to take to create equality in this country. But here's the secret, though: that equality ain't coming. White folks ain't going to give you that power. They're not going to give that away to you. So what you have to do is find ways to build your own. You got to build your own. You got to educate your own kids. You have to find a way to get your own self-esteem, your own validation, but you must shift your whole value system. You cannot decide it because some Negro got a damn job at some big white institution. You're feeding more into the poison of white supremacy because effectively you're congratulating yourself for signing on within a deal with the devil. And I'm not calling white people the devil. I'm talking about a deal with the devil in the sense that you're becoming more committed to a system that is fundamentally biased against people who are just like you. You must commit yourself to a whole different system, a whole different paradigm. I wrote a book, the new Wealth, Education, Family, and Community: A New Paradigm for Black America. The reason I wrote that book, which you email me or something, I'll put it. It's online. You can get it for not that much. But I'm not telling you to buy the book. I'm just saying that this was a point in that book. The point is that black people have to commit ourselves to a whole new paradigm of thinking that involves building and developing our own and shifting the way we see everything, the way we see success. I don't congratulate you because a white man gave you a job. I'm going to congratulate that brother over there because he built his own job. I'm not going to congratulate you because you graduated from Harvard Law School. I think that's nice. Good job. But I'm going to congratulate you more if you educate yourself and educate yourself in an effective way. And if Harvard happens to be part of that educational process, I won't consider that to be the most valuable aspect or the most valuable dimension of what you've accomplished in your life. And it doesn't mean I have anything against people who attend these institutions or who benefit from these institutions. It's really a matter of saying that you can't come to depend on these institutions. Just because something rewards you does not mean that it's good for you. You understand? I mean, it's just like forming an addiction to heroin or cocaine. Cocaine is going to make you feel good. Cocaine might heighten your performance. Cocaine is going to make you feel confident. But cocaine will also destroy you over the long term. So it's probably a little bit better to go ahead and try a different approach. So don't get addicted to white supremacy. It's like cocaine. It's literally one of the worst, most destructive things that a black person could be committed to, because ultimately you may think you're getting ahead, but you could be putting yourself in a corner or putting yourself in a situation where you end up like the other 10 million frustrated black middle class educated black people out here who went to school, worked hard, went to the big white universities, and are mad because they don't get the same opportunities as a white guy down the hall. The reason you don't get the same opportunities is because that corporation, that university was not built for you. It was built for him. His family created that. That's for them. That's not for you. You didn't build your own, and that's why you're going to suffer. That's why you're always going to be treated like you were affirmative action welfare baby, and no one's going to really give you the respect you deserve. Stop waiting for them to give you that respect. Get it from yourself and get it from your people. And that should be at the top of your value system. I care more about what black people think about me than I will ever care about what some prick on CNN says about me, or what some Supreme Court justice says, or what some white university professor says about me when he's teaching in a damn department that hasn't hired a black man in 50 years and thinks that that's normal. He's got to be insane and ignorant to think that that's normal. He's truly got a significant psychological deficit in order to think that this is actually normal. Sorry, I'm hearing noise in my background, so I'm shutting this thing down. But there's got to be something wrong with this man to really think that this is normal, and that right there to me points out the fact that I'm worshiping. If you get too caught up in white supremacy, you can end up worshiping a God who is fundamentally flawed, and that's really it. I mean, you get in America, unfortunately, if you're not careful, you can get to the point where you really think that the white standard achievement is your guide. And it's very disappointing when you commit to, or you're almost like a parent. And it's very disappointing when you commit to a parent, or commit to a God, or commit to a value system that fundamentally disappoints you and always puts you at the back of the bus. The only conclusion you can come to at the end of the day is that you must be inferior. So, if I were talking to Scalia right now, I'd probably cuss him out a little bit, or I definitely would tell him about himself. I'd probably make fun of him for being fat. I would have no respect for him because I don't see him as a person who's really accomplished that much. He just benefited from being white. White people hooked him up. Just like black people take care of me, white people take care of him. So that's all I want to say about this. I'm done. I hope that this was helpful. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Peace.